Welcome to another episode of the No Zone. My name is Nikkei Roach, and I am a former United States Army, actually, sergeant who served in the first dust off, and I served as a medic. Honored to be here. And normally, as soon as he pops it in, I apologize for any of you who had this thing pegged for exactly this time. We were having some tech issues, so it took us a little bit of while. But it is my privilege to be here today on a special holiday, which is near and dear to many of you service members, myself, and fellow patriots, to honor those who've passed before us and who've paid the ultimate price. Today is no exception. We get a chance to talk with Gold Star mom, Amanda Jacobs Ballard, whose son we're going to learn a lot more about today. And I'm going to just give you a little quick brief about her son, and just to kind of fill you in on all things that we share. So Lance Corporal Christopher Phoenix-Jacob Levy was born September 7th, 1990, and is a member of the Lumbee tribe, which is out in eastern North Carolina. If you've ever been over there, you'll know what I'm talking about. He always wanted to be a Marine, and in 2009, he joined United States Marine Corps. He is the eldest brother of Elijah and Payne. He's the uncle of Ava, Chance, and Caston. He never met some of his other family members because he departed on December 7th, 2011, while serving with the Marine Corps unit. And I want to make sure I got this correctly. He served with the 3/8 Weapons Company from Camp Lejeune, and unfortunately, we lost him in battle over in Kandahar, so over in Afghanistan. So I'm so privileged and so honored to be here. I apologize if I got not all the story correctly, but Amanda is going to fill me in. Amanda also is very active in her community, and thank you for being here. Gold Star mom, Amanda Jacobs Ballard. Good morning, Amanda.
Hello, how are you? It's definitely an honor to be here today. And, I'm so glad that you thought of me to be able to share my son's story and to remember so many other fallen heroes this weekend. As you were saying, Jacob was born September the 5th of 1990. And, he was a typical young kid. I mean, he just loved doing things. We're members of the Lumbee tribe here in North Carolina and very active in our Native American community. Jacob danced, all the time growing up, from the time he could walk until even after joining the Marine Corps. He was active, coming to our powwows and representing not just the Lumbee people, but the military in the United States Marine Corps. And there's so much I could tell you about my son. He was just, the typical shy kid. So when he told me he was actually joined the Marine Corps in 2009, it kind of shocked me, because I thought they're just going to, chew you up and spit you out. Can't you go with another branch and stuff? And he was like, no, Mom. And, his desire to be in the Marine Corps happened when 9/11 happened in 2001. He had just turned 11 years old, and, it was shocking for the entire country. And trying to explain this to him, what had happened, and not really knowing the details, it was hard. But his thought process, because what he saw on TV was all the military working together at the Pentagon and places, and he saw a Marine, and it stuck with him. And he decided then he was going to join the Corps, and he wanted to be the one that got Bin Laden at the time. And as a mom, I just kind of laughed at him and said, by the time you get old enough to go, this mess will be over. But, 2009, it was not over. He joined and went to Paris Island. It was probably the longest 13 weeks of my life being away from him and not being able to pick up the phone and call, or, just find out what was going on. And my thoughts and process of what was happening to him in boot camp, I think, scared me more than anything else. But to get a letter and a little phone call that said, Mom, I'm a Marine, I passed the crucible, was just, I could hear it in his voice, He had earned something that nobody would ever be able to take away from him. And when we went to Paris Island for his graduation, there's hundreds of them there, but as a mom, I could single him out and figured out which one he was. He had lost all his baby fat from all the training and things. And he was just so excited about it. And he pulled me to the side and told me he had a gift for me. And I was like, oh, you didn't have to do that. You haven't even started making money. And I held out my hand, and he actually gave me his EAG. And told me that if it weren't for me being his mom, he would have made it this far. And he said, because he got a lot of strength from me. And I don't know that that's true. And, I was fortunate for him to get stationed at Camp Lejeune, which only meant he was 3.5 hours away from home. But if I would have had to move to Hawaii or Japan, I think I'd have packed up everything and went just to be close to him. A lot of his buddies from Camp Lejeune, he started out with the 3/8 Weapon Company. And because we were so close at home, as many of anybody in the military knows, if you only get a 72-hour leave, you can't go somewhere that's going to take you a while to get back. So our house became, the drop-off point. If we had a weekend off, let's go to Levy's house. And of course, I would cook. I became an executive member at Costco. Had to cook so much. But and these guys were so comfortable that even on times when Jacob didn't quite get his leave because of something that may have happened while he was there during the week, they felt comfortable enough. We could still go to Levy's house. Mama cooked for us either way. So that became the family, and that's just an honor for me. Jacob and his buddies with the 3/8 went on their first, what I call their cruise ship, the Muse, to get their sea legs and stuff. And I just remember just getting some little emails of what they were doing and visiting. And during this time, the conflict with bin Laden was still going on and kind of heavy. And I got a phone call that said, Mom, we're going into combat. And this just, my heart sank, because it's not what I wanted to hear, but yet I knew he was trained for that. And they went, and, you're worried all the time. He told me not to watch the news, so I didn't watch any of the news because I didn't want to know of anything. And, things were happening. Well, I remember watching the news that night, May 2nd, when they said it was like 10:33 p.m., listening to the president at the time say bin Laden was dead. And it was just a few short moments. Jacob calls and he says, Mama, we're coming home. And I'm like, well, bin Laden's dead. And he's like, yes, I know. I'm like, I'm trying to get information from him. And he was always good about being tight-lipped, unlike me. He said, I can't talk about it, but just know we're coming home. And that was probably the best Mother's Day gift I got in 2011, because he came home on Mother's Day. And what I saw was this no longer a 19 or 18-year-old boy. He was a man, and he had changed so much. And, we got him home. We enjoyed, Mother's Day and a few days. And during that time while he's at Camp Lejeune and still coming home with the guys, he had changed. And the little boy, or the goofiness that he had, was there, but not like it was. He didn't have, that mentality to just want to goof and play around. And we talked, and he said, Mom, he says, I got to go back. And I was like, I know you're going back. You're not scheduled to go back until February. And he says, no, I need to go back because my mission is not complete. And the guys are over there and they need me. And I was like, well, Jacob, just, wait, your guys will be going back in February. And he looked at me and said, I just need you to know that I volunteered to go back with the 1/6 platoon, and they're going back as combat replacements. And again, my heart sinks, because the combat replacement means you're replacing someone that didn't make it back or was injured before. And as I've learned over the past, 10 years, from some of these other guys, it was a bloodbath there in Kajaki and Saint Jean and those places. It was just, they were guaranteed that lives would be lost. And so the replacements was just constant. And so from coming home in May, he left again in October. And he was gone, and he got with 1/6 Hard Weapons Company. And I had a few emails and things that we could talk about, and I got a few phone calls. And I remember being at work and getting a call from him, and he was telling me, he said, "Mom, we're going into a hot spot, so I'm not going to be able to talk for a couple of weeks, but tell everybody I love them and send underwear and beef jerky." So, which was, that was a simple request. And I was like, okay, just, do what you got to do, but come home. And unfortunately, the next call I got was December the 7th at 12:32 p.m. at work. And I was asked if this was Amanda Jacobs on the phone, Lance Corporal Levy's mom, and I said yes. And they asked me where I was at, and I proceeded to tell them being at work. And they said, "We need you to come home because there's been an incident with Lance Corporal Levy." And of course, they're not going to tell me anything over the phone because I'm driving home. And I get home and I see the car, and nobody wants to see that car. And they follow me down in the driveway, and I remember this big man getting out dressed in this uniform with medals all over one side, and another young lady getting out, and they brought me in. And I buckled because I was expecting the worst. And at that time they told me that at 3:15 p.m. in Afghanistan, Lance Corporal Levy had sustained a gunshot wound to the head. And I was like, "Is he alive? Is he alive?" And they said, "Yes, he's in surgery." I said, "So what do we do from here?" And I remember Master Sergeant Lewis telling me, "Pack your bags. You're going to Germany for about 30 days because that will be the process." And, I had never been out of the country, didn't have a passport or anything, but they got me a passport, got me on a plane. And, I was calling every hour on the hour trying to check in on him because he was in surgery. He was in surgery for 26 hours. It took me 26 hours to deliver him into this world. And by the time I stayed over in at Bethesda Naval Base in D.C. and got on a plane, when I got to Germany, I was met by the chaplain, and he wanted to know what my last contact was. And I told him that they said they were having to do some tests because there was no voluntary activity in the brain. And he said, and he tried to tell me that at that point it was just the machines keeping Jacob alive. And I said, "No, he knows Mama's coming." And we drove, and one of the funniest things was I was on the Autobahn, so there was no real speed limit. So I kept telling the chaplain, I said, "Faster, faster, we got to get to the hospital." And I remember getting there, and the doctors are wanting to talk to me, and I didn't have time. I said, "I need to see my son." And as I walked down this hospital hallway in Landstuhl, I'm seeing all these other military individuals. Half their bodies are gone, and just tubes everywhere. I walk into Jacob's room, and he's just got a bandage around his head. I pull back the covers just like I did at this point 21 years ago when I counted his fingers and I counted his toes and looked at his body, and it was perfect, just a bandage. And the doctor came in and had told me at that point, there was no voluntary activity in the brain. And what they had realized at that point, he should have never been brought there because he had a DNR. So he should have never went through surgery or anything in Kandahar. But he said, at this point, we knew you were on your way, so we weren't going to disconnect anything until you got here. And he said, "But ma'am, I'd like for you to know that your son's an organ donor," which was something I didn't know. I can't imagine having to write my will at 18 or 19 years old. I'm 51 and I've yet to write a will because it seems too final. And I said, "Well, I said, what I know of him, I said, he's had everything laid out and planned. I'm not going to go against his wishes. So whatever needs to be done, let's do it. And they did, got ready to do the ceremony. And I called home and let his 2 baby brothers at the time talk to him, and could hear him on the other end, Jacob, you got to come home. You promised to take us fishing. We've got to do this. And, me knowing that where I was at, that he wasn't coming home the way they wanted him to, was hard to listen to that. And they did their ceremony, and hearing them call his name and him not answer up was a harsh reality for me. And he passed away on December the 10th, 2011. And I'm proud to say that there's 7 people alive today, because he didn't just pay the one sacrifice. He gave so much. He was just a very unselfish person. He wanted to be a part of something bigger than what he was. And, to be there when Bin Laden was killed, he accomplished that 10 years later. Now he's given life to so many people. And, I haven't met these donors, but I get letters about him. And, to know that the woman that got his heart she's living a life of being a grandmother and being a mom, and people can see and they can breathe. It's just unreal. So he's not dead, and he's just constantly giving on a daily basis. And weekends like this, I know people say Happy Memorial Day, and I want people to be happy, because if he was still with us, he'd still want to have a hamburger and a hot dog and celebrate his fellow military guys. But if we just ask, say their name and take a moment to remember that everything that we're enjoying right now, whether it's good or bad, is because someone you may or may not know has given up their todays for your tomorrows. And we give a scholarship every year at Jacobs High School to a senior ROTC cadet, either going to college or going into the military. And, in 10 years, we've been able to give $18,000. And that's how, again, he just gives. And I want people, that's his legacy, that he is giving and continues to care about people he never met or that never knew him. And that's, as a Gold Star parent, sibling, spouse, that's what we want people to remember. Say their name. Think about them. If you hear a story, share their story, because as long as they're being talked about, they're not going to die.
I agree. And I didn't even want to say anything. I didn't want to interrupt this moment, because I wanted to hear his story, because I think sometimes, and I want to thank you for being so candid and so transparent today. I wanted folks to hear it from a mom's perspective. As a service member, I was talking to my mom this morning, and she said, and I told her I was going to do this interview, and she was where you were when we had the first dust off. I was around his age, and she was scared when I told her I was deployed too. So, I'm on the other side of that, so I know what that's like. But for folks to hear mom's story, to hear this person, we sometimes hear on the news and we see names, and sometimes it's very easy for us to just say, oh, that's just somebody, that's a service member, that's a Marine, that Jacob, this is a person, this is somebody's older brother, this is somebody's son, this is somebody's friend, this is somebody's fellow Marine, this is somebody who donated to 7 people. I mean, that's unselfish beyond, to die for his country, but also to contribute to the lives of not only his fellow Marines, but also to 7 perfect strangers. So I suspect he got that from you. Like he said earlier, you were talking about, that he got so much strength and so much from you, that I don't want to say charity, but that desire to serve beyond himself, and also now to serve, folks, who those 7 people, but also the scholarship that was set up in his name at his high school. This is huge. And before I go on, I would be remiss to acknowledge and bring in, because we finally got the technical error fixed up. Um, well, actually, he was behind the scenes, and his. No, I'm just kidding. I was gonna go weird, but Gunny Sergeant Jesse Almanza, who is also the co-founder of Gulf War Era Veterans, who's here and has also been in combat as well. So, Gunny, go ahead. Bring your sound on, because we can't hear your sound.
How about that?
Yeah, there you go. Crystal clear. Go ahead.
All right, technical difficulties. Amanda, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, I heard you speak a couple of days ago and heard some new things that you said. And I'm not I'm not surprised by the Marine that Lance Corporal Jacob was, that he was willing to give up part of him to others. It's amazing. And those 7 people would not have lived, probably, or maybe they would be in the verge of not getting there if it weren't for Jacob. Well, Lance Corporal Jacob, I should say, and first name. And I also appreciate the fact that you're candid about what you talk about. I mean, we could be so upset at the whole world if we wanted to, because of things that go on in our lives. I've gone to many places and I've seen this. You mentioned happy Memorial Day. Well, it's going to be happy when you're biting into that hot dog because you may have been hungry. But more important, it's a memorial. It's to, you know, I think if between Afghanistan and Iraq, there was probably about 5,440, who's counting, fatalities during those wars, during those conflicts there. And that's a lot of folks from the people that we know. And I truly say, first and foremost, for anyone that's out there, and if you really want to celebrate Memorial Days, if you call it a celebration, or if you really want to memorialize Memorial Day, look for someone that has been there, done that, like Amanda here, and know Amanda's story and talk to Amanda. Nika, you brought a good point about your mom being at the other end and wondering what was going to happen. I too am home with my wife and 4 kids. They're wondering what's going to happen. They're stuck on the TV all day long, and only us that are out in the front lines really know what's happening. But yet, we really can't relate that to you at any given time because we can't. Half the time, we don't know where we're at, and we just, you know, we just want to be considerate of anything that's associated with Memorial Day, to the point to where, number one, you do find out who a Gold Star mom or dad or husband wife is, and you get to know their stories and learn about them. That's a Memorial Day to me. And the other thing, get to know the families, because you're the mom, but there's husbands and wives and daughters and sons that have also lost others while all this conflict is going on. And even though we may think that, well, it's the war, you know, casualties of war, or whatever the case is, we're scared to death when we're out there, and we can't tell people that we're scared to death. I mean, the adrenaline and everything is going on with us while things are happening, and getting the word and not getting the word and figuring out what's next. You know, you always have to be on the alert of many things that could potentially happen. You know, hundreds of thousands of military members that went through that era, through those conflicts, luckily made it back. I'm one of them. I made it back. Although we did get into some serious situations and stuff, but you know, memorialize on Memorial Day a family member, uh, a person that didn't make it back, because you know that they will not be forgotten. And I hear that all the time. We will never forget. No, we will never forget. We will never forget. You know, and your phrase about, and please repeat it again, because if I heard it right, and maybe I was wrong. Did you say something about today's for tomorrow's?
And they, you know, those like Jacob and other families, they gave up their today for our tomorrows.
That's powerful.
And you know, it's like you were saying, you know, reach out to those families. And a part of me, I think about Jacob's Marine buddies that were with him, because I often tell people, I know I loved my son, but when I'm around these guys and I've seen some of the footage from what happened that day, oh my gosh, they loved him so much that it just makes my heart burst. And I also check up on those guys this weekend, just say, are you okay? Because as long as you're okay, mom's going to be okay here. And, you know, I bring them into my home every December just because what they did on that battlefield that day, under fire, just stress, and, you know, gave me the 15 minutes to be able to hold my son and tell him I was proud of him, I loved him, that his mission was complete. They gave me 15 minutes, and there's so many families that I have met that didn't get that opportunity. So every time I talk to another family, you know, it's like they want to hear how I touched Jacob that day, because they didn't get to touch their son, daughter, husband, wife. They want to know what it felt like. And these guys, when they're together, 20 of them in my house laughing and cutting up, Jacob is there. And so if you know someone that has lost a brother or sister in arms, check on them. That is important. My, as I call him, Doc, or the medic that worked on Jacob Corbin, every time I see him, I have to touch his hands, because I know his hands done so much. And in this world today, and we talk about there's so much hate and stuff going on, and I was angry. I was angry at anybody from the Middle East. I was just mad. But when all these guys came back and I met those individuals, what amazed me was, and I tell people often, my son was a Native American man that had been carried by his Muslim brother, worked on by an African American medic, being led out to the chopper by his squad leader, who was white. And at that point, they didn't care about religion or color, but they cared about their family and brotherhood to take care of each other. And I mean,
I'm trying to hold back tears too as well, because as a former medic and a corpsman as well for the Navy, I mean for the Army, I know that feeling. I know that feeling that you just said, and you're trained to stay dispassionate, but you can't. And just to hear it from another side, from your side, it's. I am trying to hold it back. I'm trying to stay as professional as possible, but that's a little hard. But yes, thank you for touching the corpsman, you know, and then acknowledging. And I think that's the important thing, which brings us as Americans, like no one else in the world, is that you had literally highlighted what makes America awesome. Is that you have an African American, you have a Muslim, you have a white guy, and none of these people otherwise would have probably come in contact with each other. But they found themselves in a unique period in time where every one of them had a part of his life and the transition as well. And not to take away from the folks who were in Landstuhl, who were the surgeons and the folks who took care of him, all those folks, or the folks in Kandahar who were the immediate operator, or his platoon sergeant, or his commanders. All these people, his DI at Paris Island, you know, all these people had a hand in developing this character. And you gave him the foundation, but the military and his fellow Marines helped him to become, an awesome, amazing person, that even though he was here just a short time period, that his legacy goes on. And I think you really, really pointed it out. Say his name. Say his name. You say it over and over and over again. Even if you never meet him personally, you say it and he will not die. We will not forget. And I think that's the key, is to say it over and over and over and over again. And it's so easy to highlight the negative. It's so easy to go down the path. Oh, all that stuff. But there are gifts every day that we got to take another breath.
Amen.
Because Lance Corporal Jacobs took his last breath, and we get to go on. And my kids are in this house, my grandkids and other kids who are he would never meet. Okay, all the people who are going to inherit the scholarship, he will never meet those people at this plane. On another plane, yes, we'll all meet, but we get an opportunity to hear your words because you carried him. That's different than a Marine sometimes. You carried him in your womb. You brought him into the world. You gave him life. And that's a unique experience that as a dad, I can never relate to. And I appreciate you telling us, and tell your story over and over. Don't care who it kind of irks sometimes. Say it over and over, because that's how we work. We have to hear it. We have to honor. And if ever you're in Winston-Salem, you have a dinner table, and you better believe it, because you just said that you have Marines coming to your house, and your house is a house of food. You have messed up right there, sister. You have messed up, because the Nikkei will get your address, and me and my little crew will eat you out of house and home.
I got a moose and a cow and everything in the freezer now.
You done messed up now, because we're going to eat you out. Those boys
I
will
love
eat
to
you out of
cook.
house and home.
We Lumbee women love to cook. So it's
Thank you. Go ahead, Jesse.
Well, I'd like to say too that it's a sad time in our lives when that happens. But as we move on with life, we acknowledge that nothing in our lifetimes just happen. Things happen for a reason, and I'm a strong believer of that. Nothing just happens at all. 7 lives were saved. People got together from all nationalities. Everybody that groomed your son to where he was at and where he wanted to be, basically.
yes.
It just didn't happen. Nothing just happens. And the bottom line is that because we have to continue to move on, we have to tell our stories. And one of the things that us service members, our veterans and so on, have a very hard time doing is telling our stories. And in one of our podcasts, one of our series, we talk about that. It's a healing process. It's a going through memory lane. Sometimes we have to bring that out in order to let it go. And if we don't do that, I'm pretty sure that as individuals tune into this podcast later on in the next days to come, if they're not on there already, I'm hoping that this becomes the beginning of a healing process for many, because I think I heard you say a couple of days ago that there was thousands of Gold Star moms and dads and families out there.
Yes.
And if there are thousands of Gold Star families, I sure would like, if you are out there, if you tune in or if you know of one, we would like to meet them as well. We would like Amanda to also meet him as well too. I mean, you can reach out to us. You can text message us. You can message us through Facebook. There's a bottom of the page there at our website for right now that you can send any type of information or inquiries on. And this is something that it made my Memorial Day period. It made it. It made it. It just did. Thank you.
Like you said, I'm on Facebook. People can reach out to me. One of the ways learned to deal with my grief is, as you can tell, the shirt I have on, Honor. It's a brewing company out of Chantilly, Virginia, and I'm their Gold Star Tribute Ambassador. So I can reach out to families and I ask them to tell their story. So when we do beer events or open at a new restaurant, we, generate a special dog tag with their loved one's name on it and put it in that tap panel and honor them that night. And it's ways of being able to raise money for a family or the scholarship and things like that. So again, and it connects us. As like you said, there's thousands of us out there, but my next door neighbor is not a Gold Star mom. So being able to someone to reach out to me on Facebook and say, hey, I heard your story. Can we talk? And there's times that, you're just talking to that person. All they need is someone to listen, because as you said, Jesse, it's hard for some to tell their stories. I mean, my dad was 82nd Airborne in Vietnam, and I never really heard him talk about anything until he was around certain individuals. And then it was, I needed to stay in another room because it wasn't for me to hear. Right. And over the years, learning what I've learned about Jacob and just going back, talking to my uncles about my dad and stuff, they need it. They need to know that they're not being judged for something that was really beyond their control. But what they did was to make us safe at home so we could lay our heads down every night and not worry about someone knocking our doors down and telling us we can't pray to God, we can't, wear our hair short, we can't go to work, or, that's important. And they need to know that we're out there and we care. That one little % does a lot for this country, and people need to understand that.
That's right.
And I appreciate you and Nikki here and others that were such great role models for Jacob and Philip McGeeth and so many that I've met to take that step. They signed that contract. They signed a check that they don't want to ever have to cash. I'll give my life for two sets of people in this world. My parents, my children, but for complete strangers, I have to sit back and, think about it. But individuals like y'all and my son and the other 1% did it without even second guessing. And I appreciate that. And I tell people, before Jacob went in the military, that's what Memorial Day was to me, was let's have a cookout. I get a day off from work.
Right.
But it's changed. It's changed.
I wanted to ask, just for purposes, in case someone wants to come up to Chantilly or really get in contact and connect with you, is there a way? I mean, I heard you say earlier you're on social media, yeah. But if someone is, a Gold Star family member, or they're just a service member, family, yeah, or either way, what would you say is the best way for them to reach out to you if they want to come and get some great beer as well?
Well, definitely, like I said, social media, you can find me, but honorbrewing.com. They're in Chantilly, Virginia. There is the beer tasting room and food. So definitely go by there, have a beer. We have a wall of honor. And if you want to add a loved one to that wall, you can tell me about it, or you can go into the brewery yourself and they'll take all the information and we'll get your loved one on that wall with no problem. And we can do some great things.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Amanda, for being here. Thank you for the sacrifice that your son, made. And thank you for your dad as well, because you have service members on both sides of the block. Thankfully, you have somebody in the Army in the family.
A lot of Army guys. Jacob scared me the whole Marine thing, but we're okay.
I was going to say, oh, man, another Marine? And I was like, but when you said we have somebody in 80 seconds, I said, yes, somebody in the Army in the family.
Even have a Green Beret from the Army, so we're good.
Oh my God, good, perfect. I know the Navy folks right here are probably just like, yeah, whatever. or the Air Force is like freaking out, or the Coast is like, oh man, did they ever give us anything? But okay.
Well, as Jacob used to say, the Marine Corps was the men's department of the Navy. So we, I heard all the little
Oh,
All
yeah.
the interbranch, attacks on each other, of course.
yeah.
I think you cannot be a service member without enjoying a good jab pretty much every time you run. I cannot think of the many times I jabbed Jesse, for being a Marine, and he jabbed me back for being a soldier. So it is love of everybody in the military, and it's a love of our country, and it's a love of their families, and it's a love of you that we continue to do what we do. We tell our stories as Gulf War era veterans. We tell the stories of other members of their family, because I think when we tell our stories, as Jesse had alluded to, and you said, then it becomes real. It's not a newscast. It's not, something on a memorial wall. It's not something in the history books. It's something that's living and breathing, and it evolves, and it becomes more, and it becomes more. And then that's the beauty. That's the beauty, is that it keeps going. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Jesse, for popping up. And if you want to see us again, you can always go over to Gulf War Era Coffee. That's where it is right now. Gulf War Veterans Coffee.com to find out more about our podcast, all the things we're doing, and also to connect with fellow service members as well as their families. So thank you very much for your time, Amanda. Thank you, Jesse, and thank everybody else. And happy Memorial Day.
Have a good one. Thank you.